Hello, and welcome to the Sleepy Survival Stories channel. Maybe you're listening to this with the lights low, your body tired in ways you can't quite name. The day has asked a lot of you. Expectations, noise, small stresses that piled up like snowflakes until they felt heavy on your shoulders. But now, at last, the world around you is softening. The night has come to place its quiet hand on your heart. Let your eyes relax. You don't have to force them closed, just let them grow heavy, like snow settling gently on a still mountainside. Take a slow, easy breath in and a long, gentle breath out. Feel the air moving through you like a calm wind along a high ridge. With every inhale, imagine cool, clean air from the upper world, where glaciers glow and stars feel close enough to touch. With every exhale, let go of tension in your jaw, in your shoulders, in the center of your chest. Let the muscles around your eyes soften. Let your hands loosen where they rest. Around you, picture a small circle of light, maybe a candle, maybe the glowing ember of a tiny camp stove in the dark. Outside that circle, there is only quiet rock, snow, and stars. No emails, no deadlines, no expectations. Just the simple truth that, for this moment, you are safe. You are sheltered, as if tucked inside a warm tent, zipped up against all the cold of the world. And as you breathe out, let the peace of this night surround you, like a calm sky over the highest peaks. Tonight, we settle over the high world. We will drift through stories of ridges and icefalls, of climbers who stepped into the thin, shimmering air where the earth narrows and the soul feels exposed. There will be mistakes and misfortunes, avalanches and storms, but told softly, held gently, wrapped in the deeper warmth of what they reveal about love, courage, and the enduring human spirit. You don't have to remember the names. You don't have to follow every timeline. Just let each story pass by like lanterns on a distant slope, appearing for a moment and then fading into the dark, leaving behind a quiet glow inside you. If thoughts arise about tomorrow, about things undone, let them drift past like clouds crossing a moonlit summit. You don't need to chase them or push them away. You can just watch them float by and return to your breath, to the soft weight of your blankets, to the sense that, here and now, nothing is required of you. You have walked far in your own life. You have climbed more than you realize. Now, let this be your base camp of rest. You are here to rest, to breathe, and to be held in a story larger than yourself. Chapter 1. Before the headlines, before the questions and the grief, there was simply a young man standing beneath a frozen waterfall, listening to the quiet song of ice and air. The winter cliff rose above him like a pale blue organ in a cathedral of stone, every icicle a hanging bell of silence. His name was Guy, a student with cold fingers and a warm, curious heart, clipping on his gear in the dim light of a Canadian morning. He thought he was just trying a new sport. In truth, he was touching a doorway into a world where each careful swing of an axe became a prayer, and each step upward whispered, "I am still alive." Chapter 2. On his very first climb, that waterfall took him 7 long hours. Every meter was an invitation to surrender, to turn back to safe ground and warm rooms. But Guy stayed, breathing slowly, trusting the small bite of steel in ice, learning how his body and fear could share the same narrow space. Years later, he returned to that same route, alone, and climbed it in less than 5 minutes. The mountain had not changed. The ice was the same cold glass. The miracle was inside him. Sometimes growth is not loud or visible. It is simply the gentle truth that what once seemed impossible now feels like a quiet walk. Chapter 3. As the years passed, Guy became known for a different kind of stillness. The kind found in free solo ice climbs, where no rope caught his fall, and his only safety was presence. To many, this sounded like madness, but for him, it was a slow, crystalline dance with the frozen world. On the trophy wall of Mount Rundle, he linked 3 difficult routes together, moving alone through long pillars of ice that almost no one else would touch. Each swing, each kick, was a conversation with gravity and grace. High above the valley, he was not chasing applause. He was listening for that thin, pure place where fear softens into focus and the soul remembers its courage. Chapter 4. One winter, at a gathering of climbers in Montana, Guy woke before dawn with the familiar excitement of a festival day. Friends laughed over coffee, breath steaming in the dark, ropes coiled neatly at their feet. The frozen waterfall they climbed that morning glittered like glass under a pale sky. Later, as he and his partner walked beneath another slope, the snow above them quietly shifted, and a white river began to move. An avalanche is only snow returning to its own resting place, yet it can carry a life away in a single long breath. Guy left this world doing what he loved, wrapped in the same cold beauty that had called him since youth, his story now flowing on in the hearts he inspired. Chapter 5. Those who climbed with Guy remember not just his daring, but his quiet joy. Between frozen walls and competitions, he taught children to move over rock, to tie knots, to read the sky. He wrote careful notes about every climb, not as trophies, but as little lanterns for others to follow. In a small apartment, he kept lists of routes and dreams, hand-scribbled maps of ice and hope. He did not carry much money, but he carried friendships from valley to valley, country to country. In that simple, generous way, he showed that the richest climbers are not those who stand highest, but those who love the most. Chapter 6. When news of his passing spread, the ice world felt suddenly quieter, like a wind that had dropped. Old partners spoke of his focus on the wall, but even more of his kindness when the ropes were coiled. They remembered laughter in frozen parking lots, shared thermoses, long drives through snowy forests. Many said that when they swing their tools into ice, they still think of him, and adjust their movement with a little more care, a little more gratitude. In that soft, invisible way, he climbs on through other hands and hearts, his courage turning into a gentle reminder. Life is fragile, but love can echo far beyond a single fall. Chapter 7. As you listen, you might feel a small tug inside, wondering why some souls are drawn so high, so near the places where risk and beauty hold hands. The truth is, we each have our own vertical ice, our own steep unknowns. For some, it is a dream delayed, a fear faced, a long healing. Guy's story, and many, like his, invite us not to chase danger, but to notice how precious each careful step can be. Take a slow breath in and let it out like snow sliding gently off a roof. You do not need to climb anything tonight. You only need to rest in the knowledge that your life, too, is a quiet, sacred ascent. Chapter 8. Far from frozen waterfalls and roadside cliffs, another shape rises from the earth like a dark, cold flame. K2. The Savage Mountain. Where Guy's playgrounds were blue curtains of ice, this peak is a vast stone pyramid, standing watch in the Karakoram. To reach its base camp, you walk for days over broken glaciers, past sharpened ridges and silent, ancient ice. By the time the tents appear beneath its towering faces, the world of cities and streets feels distant, like a forgotten dream. Climbers arrive here thinner, quieter, humbled by the way K2 leans into the sky, as if listening for the smallest tremor in each human heart. Chapter 9. One summer, in the early 1992, a team, known as the Northlight expedition, stepped into that high glacial valley. Germans, a Kyrgyz climber, an Australian, all carrying the same fragile mix of skill, hope, and uncertainty. Lines had already been fixed on the Abruzzi spur, thin cords of trust running up the mountain's ribs. Weather delayed them, as it often does on K2, with clouds wrapping the summit like a grey shroud. Yet between storms, they shared meals at base camp, watched the light change on the walls, and felt that deep magnetic pull, the desire to stand just once on that tiny, icy point where the earth finally runs out and the sky begins. Chapter 10. When the Northlight climbers finally began to move higher, it was like walking into a long, shifting prayer. They slept at Camp 1, then Camp 2, their tents trembling in the night wind. Storms swept the ridges, tearing away fabric, scattering gear, erasing the work of earlier teams. More than once they arrived at a camp to find only scraps half buried in snow, as if the mountain had quietly shaken its head and started over. Still, they climbed. They fixed new ropes, rebuilt small shelters, shared tired smiles over stoves hissing in thin air. Each step upward was a question. Will the sky open for us? Will we be allowed to pass? Chapter 11. At last a clear window came, sharp and cold. From Camp 4, 6 men joined their hopes together, the Northlight team and 2 Swedes. They moved into the darkness at 4 a.m., headlamps glowing like tiny stars on the ice. By midday they reached the bottleneck, an 80-meter traverse beneath a hanging serac, one of the most fragile places a human can stand. They replaced lost ropes, inching across the exposure where earth falls away into shadow. Above, the summit stood only a few hundred meters higher, but the air had thickened into heavy glass. Still they climbed, one slow breath at a time, until boots touched the top and the day began to fade. As you listen now, let your breathing slow, like a careful climber, placing each foot with intention. Feel how your chest rises gently, then settles, like a tent breathing with the wind. The men on K2 knew, even as they stood on the summit, that reaching the top was only the halfway point. In the same way, you know that your own life is not measured only by the peaks you gain, but by the quiet courage with which you return, again and again, to ordinary days. Let that thought soften your shoulders. Let the soft weight of your blankets become your safe camp against the winds of the world. You do not need to solve anything now. You are allowed to rest. Chapter 12. On that long K2 day, the summit came late. The sky was already bruised with evening when the last of the 6 climbers stepped onto the narrow crest. There was no cheering, no throwing of arms into the air, only quiet breaths through masks, a few brief embraces, and the soft awareness that they were tired, far too tired. Around them, the world fell away in every direction, a sea of ridges and clouds. They had reached the dream, but their bodies knew the truth. Half the journey, and perhaps the hardest half, still waited in the dark. With the light fading, they turned their backs to the summit and began the long descent. Chapter 13. Night wrapped itself around the mountain like a slow, dark tide. Headlamps flickered against rock and snow, small halos of human will moving beneath vast, indifferent stars. One climber, Jensen, fought the creeping numbness in his fingers and toes, feeling the bite of frost beginning to claim them. Ahead and behind, the tiny lights of his friends moved uncertainly. Higher up, Bender began to slow, his mind clouded, his steps wavering in the thin air. High-altitude sickness is a silent thief, slipping into the brain like fog. Jensen called to him across the cold, guiding him with words alone, step by step, breath by breath, voice reaching through darkness like a lifeline. Chapter 14. Hours passed. The bottleneck loomed again, now a black cut against the sky. Jensen waited beneath it, watching the faint light above where Bender struggled, listening to the emptiness between their shouted words. He himself was freezing, pain tightening in his leg as frostbite took root. At last, Bender reached him, exhausted, barely there. Jensen did what he could, settled his friend in a small hollow, urged him to stay put, promised that help would come. Then he turned to descend alone, because survival sometimes asks a terrible choice. By morning, the mountain would keep 3 of their companions, Joe, Peter, and Bender, gently folded into its snows, their stories continuing in another kind of light. Chapter 15. Those who returned from that season on K2 carried more than frostbite and fatigue. They carried voices, small images frozen in memory. The sound of a friend's laugh in a tent, the glint of a headlamp above, the last wave of a gloved hand. At base camp, prayer flags stirred in the wind like pages of a book being slowly turned. Some might say the climb had failed, because not everyone came home. Yet in another sense, their courage, their love for one another, and their willingness to help, even at great cost, became a quiet summit of the heart. As you lie here, breathe in gently, and breathe out a little more slowly. You do not have to carry anyone tonight. You can set your burdens down, like a heavy pack on the floor, and let the silence hold you for a while. Chapter 16. Years after that summer on K2, another story unfolded on its steep, glittering sides, this time in the deep of winter. The savage mountain, already harsh in warmth and light, became something even more otherworldly when the winds sharpened and the temperatures fell far below freezing. In January 2021, 10 Nepali climbers joined their strength and spirit, moving as one, to complete the first ever winter ascent of K2. Their song was one of unity, Sherpas from different teams tying their ropes together, sharing oxygen, sharing risk. When they reached the summit, they sang, not for ego, but for their people, for the long, quiet labor of those who had always walked in the shadows of these heights. Chapter 17. But that winter season held more than celebration. Around the same time, many other climbers gathered on the same mountain, drawn by the rare, clear window the weather offered. One commercial expedition brought clients of different experience levels, all dreaming of a winter summit. At Camp 3, more than 25 people pressed into a space meant for far fewer, shivering through a night of minus 35 degrees. Tents were scarce, oxygen limited. Some slept squeezed together, others barely sheltered. Outside, the wind scraped along the ridges. Inside, human warmth and whispered prayers tried to soften the cold. In that cramped, icy camp, you could feel how thin the line is between ambition and surrender. Take a slow breath in and let it drift out, longer, like wind flowing down a frozen couloir at dusk. Chapter 18. Among those on the mountain was Atanas, a vegan climber with gentle eyes and a determined heart. He dreamed of standing on all 14 of the world's highest peaks without taking life to fuel his own. He wrote about pure food, about caring for the earth, about living in alignment with his values. On K2, he moved with his trusted partner, Lakpa, climbing quickly yet calmly, choosing lightness where others chose weight. When they decided to descend from Camp 3, Atanas stepped onto the fixed lines of the Black Pyramid, unclipping from one section of rope to the next, as climbers do thousands of times. Somewhere in that small, ordinary moment, his footing failed, and he fell into the white. Chapter 19. Other climbers, lower on the route, saw only a bright red jacket passing through the air in a terrible silence, then vanishing down the great face of the mountain. For Lakpa and for Atanas's loved ones, the loss was more than words can hold. Yet even as grief settled over the camps and the valleys far below, his life remained a testament to conviction, to kindness, to the belief that our choices can be gentle even in harsh places. As you lie here, you might think of your own quiet ideals, the small promises you've made to yourself. Breathe in softly, breathe out a little slower. You do not have to climb anything tonight. It is enough simply to keep that light alive within you. Chapter 20. The morning after that crowded night in Camp 3, most climbers turned their faces downward towards safety. But 3 men, Ali, John, and Juan, felt the quiet pull to keep going higher. Each carried his own homeland in his heart, the glaciers of Pakistan, the winds of Iceland, the ranges of Chile. They moved into the cold, toward the bottleneck, their footsteps weaving a fragile line through history. Radios crackled, then fell silent. Night came, and their voices did not return. Search teams tried. Prayers rose from tents and distant living rooms, but the mountain gave no answer for many days. In time, their bodies were found beneath the serac, and their names became part of K2's long, solemn litany. As these stories settle inside you, let your own breath be your rope, your anchor, your steady line through the darkness. Inhale slowly, as if you're drawing in the thin, clear air of a high plateau. Exhale even more slowly, letting the day's worries spill away like meltwater down a quiet valley. Feel the bed beneath you as firm ground, a safe ledge carved just for you above all the troubles below. The climbers you've heard about chased summits with their whole being. You, tonight, are invited to chase only one thing: rest. Let your thoughts move like distant headlamps on a ridge, appearing, wandering, then disappearing into the night. You can simply watch and soften and be held. Chapter 21. Far to the east, another giant stands with its white crown touching the jet stream. Everest, the roof of the world. In the spring of 1994, an Australian climber named Michael arrived once more at its base, carrying a history few could understand. 6 times he had tried to reach the summit. 6 times the mountain had turned him back by weather, by sickness, by circumstance. Now he was 53, older than many around him, but the ember inside had not gone out. He joined a large American expedition, yet moved largely on his own rhythm, quiet and determined, as if this 7th attempt was less a conquest and more a conversation long overdue. Chapter 22. The team worked up the northern side of Everest step by step, like a slow song unfolding. Camps bloomed and vanished on the high ridges. Camp 1, Camp 2, Camp 3. Ropes were fixed along the north ridge, thin threads of safety laid over ancient rock. Winds tore at tents, painting the air with plumes of snow, sometimes pausing for only a day before roaring back. Michael helped carry loads, shared the ordinary chores of mountain life, all the while keeping his deeper hope tucked close, like a photograph in an inner pocket. Every acclimatization climb, every careful descent, was one more page turned in the story he had been writing with this mountain for years. Chapter 23. One day, just as Camp 5 was being secured high on the ridge, an unexpected crisis rippled through the expedition. A Sherpa at Camp 4 suffered a sudden stroke, his body seizing under the thin sky. In an instant, summit dreams fell to the background, and a different summit appeared. The simple, urgent wish to keep a fellow human alive. Climbers and Sherpas joined their strength, carrying him down through steep, icy terrain, hour after exhausting hour. Oxygen flowed, IV lines dripped, prayers were spoken in different languages. At last, they reached help, and the man survived. On that day, the greatest victory on Everest was not a flag on the summit, but a heartbeat preserved. Chapter 24. The rescue of the Sherpa cost the team 10 precious days, but it also revealed something deeper than any summit shot could capture. Men who had come to chase a dream now spent themselves carrying another man toward life, step after step, breath after breath. When the winds finally calmed again, and the camps were repaired, the mountains seemed to stand a little more gently in their minds, not as a prize, but as a place where choices echo. For Michael, the delay did not feel like a setback. It felt like a reminder that the heart of climbing was not only up and down, but in how you walk beside others when the air grows thin. Chapter 25. At last, near the end of May, a narrow weather window opened. The sky turned clear and cold above Camp 6, high on the north ridge. Michael shared a small tent with 2 strong climbers, Mark and David, knowing that the next day would likely be his final chance. They agreed to climb together, 3 figures roped loosely by trust and shared intent. Before dawn, they stepped into the darkness, headlamps slicing pale tunnels through the wind. From far below, those at base camp watched their tiny lights creep up the slope. Hour after hour the trio moved, but their pace was slow, the mountain rising before them like a long, solemn question. Chapter 26. By midday, they reached the first step, a rocky obstacle on the way to the high crest. There, reality pressed in. The day was already advanced, and their progress lagged far behind the safe rhythm. David, weighing the hours and the height, chose to turn back. It was not a failure, but a fierce act of wisdom, honoring both his own life and the mountain's truth. Michael and Mark continued, drawn onward by 7 attempts worth of longing. Above them, the summit glittered in thin air. Below, the world receded into cloud. In that narrowing space, every breath grew heavier, every minute a fragile thread between the dream and the dark. Chapter 27. Evening found them still climbing, the sun slipping away behind distant ridges. At 7:20 p.m., long after most would have turned around, Michael's boots finally touched the highest point on Earth. There was no crowd, no anthem, just 2 men standing in the freezing wind, one at last face to face with the summit that had eluded him 6 times before. Perhaps there was a small smile, a quiet thank you, a glance at the fading light. Yet the air up there offered no warmth, no shelter, only beauty edged with danger. Exhausted, With night already closing in, they scraped out a tiny bivouac near the top and settled beneath the stars, trusting the calm sky to keep its watch until morning. Chapter 28. Dawn on the summit came thin and cruel. The sky that had been kind the day before now hardened into a colder, sharper blue. Winds rose, brushing spindrift off the ridges like breath from some great sleeping creature. Michael and Mark knew they could not linger. They began to descend, moving carefully along the crest, their bodies stiff from a night in the death zone. Before long, Michael's eyes blurred. The endless glare of snow and sun had left him snowblind. Each step became slower, more uncertain. Mark waited often, offering words of reassurance, a guiding hand. The mountain, silent as always, simply watched them move along its ancient spine. Chapter 29. As the hours passed, Michael's strength faded like light at the end of day. His legs buckled. His body would no longer carry him. On that narrow ridge, far above rescue, Mark faced a terrible simplicity. Leave his friend and save himself, or try to help and risk both lives. He chose the harder kindness. He lifted Michael as best he could, half carrying, half guiding him downward. 11 hours they moved, gaining only a small drop in height. Mark's own feet were freezing, pain burning in his toes. Frostbite crept upward, time pressed in from all sides, yet still he stayed as long as his will and body allowed. Chapter 30. Near the second step, darkness came again. Mark was exhausted, his feet badly damaged, his own life narrowing into a small, flickering flame. There, beneath a harsh sky and a wall of rock, he made the choice he had hoped never to face. He settled Michael as gently as he could, knowing his friend would not likely rise again. Then he turned to continue alone, speaking a quiet farewell into the wind. Some might judge from far and safe places, but on that ridge, love looked like carrying a man as far as humanly possible, then entrusting him to mercy beyond human hands. In that hard, fragile moment, Mark's heart summited a different kind of peak. When you think of their story now, let your breathing soften. Inhale slowly, as if drawing in cold, clear air from a high coal. Exhale even more gently, sending out all the judgment, all the harshness you sometimes turn against yourself. The mountains remind us that every life holds impossible choices, and that kindness is often imperfect, yet still real. Feel your body resting where it is, like a tent anchored firmly in good snow. You are not on a knife-edge ridge, you are on safe ground. You do not have to decide anything tonight. You only have to breathe, to loosen, and to let a quiet compassion settle over your own memories, like fresh, soft snow. Chapter 31. Far below these ridges and summits, in ordinary towns and cities, many people heard only the headlines. Tragedy, disaster, gone wrong. But the mountains themselves do not speak in such sharp words. They speak in quieter phrases. Snowfall and thaw, wind and stillness, lives arriving and leaving like seasons. When you listen more softly, you can hear another story beneath the sorrow, a story of partners who refused to abandon each other, of rescuers who climbed back into danger for a stranger, of families who held photographs close and chose to remember not the last hours, but the years of laughter before. In that gentler light, the mountains become not monsters, but mirrors, reflecting our most tender strengths. Chapter 32. There is a simple ritual shared on every high peak, whether in the Himalaya, the Karakoram, or the silent Rockies. Before stepping onto a dangerous slope, climbers pause. Gloves adjust buckles. Eyes scan the horizon. In that pause, a small prayer often rises, not always with words, sometimes only as a feeling. Let me move wisely. Let me come home. You have your own versions of that prayer, spoken before hard conversations, long drives, new beginnings. The mountain stories you're hearing tonight are not far away from your life. They are your courage, turned into snow and rock. Breathe gently now, and feel how every inhale is its own quiet, living summit. Chapter 33. In the glow of headlamps and stoves, far from cameras and headlines, climbers often share small, ordinary kindnesses. A spare pair of gloves, a little extra tea, a joke told at just the right moment to loosen the knot of fear in a partner's chest. These are not dramatic rescues, yet they hold just as much weight as any bold ascent. On K2 in winter, in crowded tents and broken camps, some gave up their chance at the summit so others could rest. On Everest, some turned back to help carry a weakened man, knowing it might cost their dream. In the ledger of the soul, these quiet choices glow long after flags and records fade. Chapter 34. As you lie here, listening to these woven tales of ice and wind, notice how your own body begins to settle. Your heartbeat slows, like a caravan reaching camp after a long day's walk. Your thoughts drift, like spindrift curling off a ridge in the last light. The climbers we've remembered walked close to the edge between life and death. You, tonight, walk the soft line between waking and sleep. Both are thresholds, both deserve reverence. You do not need to be heroic. You do not need to be perfect. You are allowed simply to be a soul at rest beneath a great sky, letting the long story of the mountains lull you toward deeper peace. Chapter 35. In every high expedition, there are people whose names never reach the news. Porters who carry loads along broken glaciers, cooks who wake before dawn to stir warm food into the cold. In a quiet kitchen tent below K2 or Everest, steam rises from simple pots as the wind claws at the canvas outside. A radio murmurs, then falls silent. Faces turn upward when someone mentions a team still high on the wall. These men and women may never set crampons on the summit ridge, yet their care is woven into every step. Without them, the heroes could not climb. Their love moves in the background, steady as a heartbeat, unseen but essential. Chapter 36. Far away, in cities and villages, families keep their own kind of vigil. A partner checks an email inbox again. A parent leaves their phone on through the night, the screen like a small, restless star on the bedside table. A child traces their finger over a photo of someone in a bright jacket and goggles, standing in snow. They may not understand the altitudes or the routes, but they feel the distance, like a long, silent tunnel. In their hearts, a simple wish repeats, "Come back, just come back." When news is good, relief flows like warm water. When it is not, love remains, holding their memory like a candle cupped against the wind. Chapter 37. Sometimes, a climb goes almost wrong, and yet quietly turns toward grace. A rope that holds when it might have snapped. A cornice that chooses not to break. A partner who notices the faraway look in someone's eyes and suggests turning back before it is too late. These near misses rarely become stories told to millions. They live instead as private psalms in the hearts of those who walked away, reminders that life is not only preserved by strength, but by timing, intuition, and small mercies we do not control. As you breathe now, You might remember moments in your own life when you almost fell and somehow, gently, found your footing again. Chapter 38. On certain nights in base camp, when the weather is too wild for climbing, people gather in a mess tent and trade tales. Some are funny: mistied boots, spilled tea, mixed up tents. Others are softer: a first sunrise seen from above the clouds, a moment of silence shared on a ridge where a friend once stood. The lantern light paints gold halos on tired faces as steam curls from cups. Outside, avalanches rumble distantly, like muted drums. Inside, voices weave a different music of memory, gratitude, and the simple comfort of not being alone. In the end, this is another summit: to sit in the circle of others and feel your spirit quietly warmed. Chapter 39. High on the flanks of K2, there is a place called Camp 3. Perched around 7,250 meters, nearly 23,800 feet above the sea. People sometimes compare that height to football fields or towers stacked upon towers, trying to make the impossible feel familiar. But for the climber standing there, it is not numbers that matter. It is the sound of the wind, like a low, constant hymn. It is the way the world curves below, valleys reduced to faint lines, rivers to silver threads. In the thin air, every breath is a small labor, yet also a blessing, proof that your heart still beats, that existence continues even where almost nothing should survive. Chapter 40. On winter nights in Camp 3, the cold seeps into everything, into metal, into fabric, into bone. Tents strain and snap, fabric cracking like old paper. Inside, people lie shoulder to shoulder, boots pressed against packs, sharing warmth the way they share rope. Some have frost-numbed fingers curled in their gloves. Some have quiet tears that freeze before they fall. Above them, the rest of the route waits, steep and unforgiving. Below, the way down is long and uncertain. In that cramped space, a new summit appears. The decision to turn back, to live, to accept that sometimes the bravest step is the one that leads home instead of higher. As you listen, feel how your own world grows simpler when your eyes close. You are not at 7,250 meters. You are lying in a safe, familiar place. Let your breath become your only task. Inhale slowly, as if drawing in crisp, starlit air. Exhale even more softly, letting tension flow out through the soles of your feet down into the earth. The climbers in those small, shaking tents had to endure the night to see morning. You do not. You are free to let go, to sink deeper into softness, to trust that the darkness around you is gentle. For you, this night is not an ordeal, but a gift of rest. Chapter 41. On big mountains, tragedies rarely come from one grand mistake. They grow instead from many small things. A rope buried in snow, a misjudged weather window, a few too many people in too few tents, a quiet pressure not to be the one who says, "Enough." In thin air, the margin for error is as narrow as a knife-edge ridge. Yet the stories that reach us, far below, can do a tender work. They teach us to notice when we are too tired, when our own life is becoming cramped with expectations, when we need to descend from the summit of should and return to a kinder altitude within ourselves. Chapter 42. Down at K2 Base Camp, the glacier is a river of ancient ice, creaking and glowing faintly under starlight. It was there, among scattered tents and prayer flags, that Atanas's partner waited, listening to distant radio calls, trying to read the mountain's silence. When his body finally arrived at the foot of the peak, the bright jacket that had flashed past those two climbers higher up was now still. There are no words that can hold that moment fully, yet even in such sharp sorrow, love does something mysterious. It remembers the whole person, not just the fall. It gathers their laughter, their ideals, their gentle stubbornness, and wraps them tenderly around the grief. Chapter 43. In the days after Ali, John, and Juan disappeared high on K2, messages crossed oceans like unseen birds. In Pakistan, Iceland, Chile, and far beyond, people checked news feeds again and again, hoping for a line that said, "Found alive." Helicopters searched when weather allowed. Fellow climbers scanned the slopes through binoculars, calling their names into the cold. At last, the search was called off, and later, their bodies were discovered beneath the bottleneck. For those who loved them, the mountain became a kind of altar, holding the last place their boots touched. Somewhere in each heart, a quiet agreement formed. Grief would be real, but so would gratitude for the light they had carried. Chapter 44. After Everest, Mark descended with the help of his companions, his feet swollen and burned with frostbite. In a clinic far from the summit, bandages replaced crampons, and the sounds of wind were traded for the hum of machines. He had to live for a while with questions about choices made, about the thin line where loyalty and survival meet. Over time, those questions softened, like hard ice melting into a gentler stream. He knew, as did many who understood such heights, that he had given everything he could. When he closed his eyes at night, perhaps he saw not only that final ridge, but also long ago camps, shared jokes, and the quiet strength of his friend. Chapter 45. People sometimes say that Michael failed 6 times before he finally reached the top of Everest, as if all those earlier journeys were empty. But mountains do not keep score the way we do. They do not label one climb success and another failure. They simply witness the days and nights, the storms endured, the friendships formed, the patience learned. In the same way, your life is not defined only by the moments when everything works out. It is shaped just as deeply by the times you turned back, the promises you kept, the kindness you offered when you were tired. Take a slow breath in and let it out gently, knowing that nothing true in you is ever wasted. Chapter 46. On quiet evenings when the high camps are empty and only ravens circle the ridges, the great peaks seem almost asleep. Snow settles into their couloirs, clouds wrap around their shoulders like shawls. Yet in human hearts, the stories continue to move. Guides pass on lessons to younger climbers, about turning around early, about checking on partners, about listening to the mountain and to oneself. Families speak of sons and daughters not as victims, but as souls who loved fiercely. And somewhere, perhaps where you are lying now, someone hears these stories and feels a small, steadying truth. That courage is not only found in summits, but also in the gentle decision to rest, to heal, and to begin again. Chapter 47. In the quiet after tragedy, mountains often stand beneath vast, clear skies, as if nothing has changed. The same ridges glow in sunrise. The same shadows pool in deep couloirs. Yet for those who have lost someone there, the landscape is forever altered. A certain slope becomes a name. A particular ridge becomes a date. Still, Many families and friends choose not to hate these places. Instead, they imagine their loved one in a moment of joy, a crisp morning above the clouds, a shared joke at camp, a first glimpse of a summit. In this way, the harshest heights become, mysteriously, places of blessing as well as sorrow. Chapter 48. There is a kind of courage that never touches ice or snow. It lives in the slow work of healing, in a climber who returns from a hard season and learns to walk again on injured feet, in a partner who rearranges life after loss, carrying both grief and gratitude into each new day, in someone who hears these stories and chooses, quietly, to live more gently, to drive a little slower, to speak a little kinder, to hold loved ones a little closer. The mountains, with all their risks, can teach us to cherish the simple miracle of an ordinary morning at low altitude, with warm socks and a steaming cup in hand. Let your breath deepen now, as we pause in the middle of this long, high journey. Imagine that you are in a quiet base, camp at dusk, halfway through an expedition. The hardest ridges still lie ahead, the longest valleys are far below. But tonight, you are not moving. You are wrapped in a warm sleeping bag, the tent glowing softly from a small lantern. Outside, the wind brushes the fabric with a gentle hand. Above the nylon and the sky, stars are turning in their patient courses, far beyond all human striving. You do not have to climb tonight. You do not have to descend. You are allowed simply to be here, in this small circle of light, exactly as you are. Breathe in slowly, and feel your lungs fill like a sail catching a calm wind. Breathe out even more slowly, letting the weight of expectations drain away what you should have done today, what you must do tomorrow. All of that can rest outside, like packs piled beside the tent. In here, there is only your heartbeat, steady as footsteps on a familiar trail, and your breath, flowing in and out like a quiet tide. You don't have to conquer summits tonight. You are here to rest. If your mind wanders to old regrets, imagine them as distant peaks fading into evening haze. You can nod to them with kindness, then let the mist take them from view. If worries about tomorrow appear, see them as tiny headlamps far away on another ridge, moving, shifting, but too distant to disturb your camp. You can watch them without following. Feel the mattress or blankets beneath you as solid ground, a safe ledge carved out of the day just for you. Your body has carried you through storms you barely noticed at the time, small anxieties, quick decisions, quiet acts of endurance. Now it deserves this stillness. Let your jaw unclench. Let your shoulders sink. Let your hands soften where they rest. In this center place of the story, know that you are already enough, even in your unfinished climbs, even in your unanswered questions. The mountains will continue their long, silent rising. Tonight, your only task is to lie here and be gently remade by rest. Chapter 49. As the years pass, the sharpness of these events softens, like footprints slowly filling with new snow. Photographs fade a little at the edges. Gear grows old in closets, yet the lessons do not vanish. Somewhere, a young climber reads about Guy's careful focus and chooses the safer line. Another studies the K, 2 journals, and decides to turn back earlier, trusting intuition over schedule. Someone hears of Michael's 7th attempt and understands that persistence must walk hand in hand with wisdom. In this way, the lives behind the stories keep quietly shaping the future, like buried ice feeding distant rivers no one ever sees begin. Chapter 50. There is a moment on every mountain when the world falls utterly silent. No wind, no loose stones, no voices, just a vast, listening stillness that feels almost holy. Climbers sometimes describe it as if the mountain itself were pausing, considering them. In your own life, you may have felt such pauses too, sitting by a window at dawn, standing in an empty room after everyone leaves, waking in the night to a deep, unexplainable calm. These are your high, quiet places. You don't need crampons to reach them, only a willingness to stop and listen. In that hush, something tender and enduring often whispers, "You are loved. You are not alone." Chapter 51. Tonight, as you rest, imagine that all these stories gather around you like distant campfires on a dark hillside. Each one burns with a different flame, Guy's joyful focus, the Northlight team's shared rope, Atanas's gentle convictions, the winter climber's unity, Michael's patient return. You do not need to sort or judge them. You can simply feel their warmth reaching you across time and snow. Their courage does not ask you to risk your life. It invites you instead to live yours more softly, to forgive yourself, to cherish others, to honor the small summits of everyday kindness. Let that warmth seep into your chest now, loosening whatever has been clenched too long. Chapter 52. Outside your window, somewhere beyond the roofs and trees, the same stars that watched over K2 and Everest are shining tonight. They have seen avalanches and sunrises, laughter in tents and tears at memorials. They have watched people stand on summits for brief, breathless moments, then descend back into the valley of ordinary days. To those stars, your life is just as precious as any climber's, your quiet efforts, your unseen endurance, your choice to keep loving despite old wounds. As you breathe in, feel their ancient light brushing the edges of your sleep. As you breathe out, let go a little more, trusting that there is a larger story holding you, gently as you drift. Chapter 53. Some evenings, guides and Sherpas walk alone along the edges of base camp, letting the cold clear their thoughts. They have seen more than one lifetime's worth of storms and rescues, summit celebrations and silent returns. Many could fill books with close calls, but often they keep their stories simple. We went up, we came down, we are grateful. In their quiet restraint lies a certain wisdom, that not every miracle needs to be shouted, not every scar needs to be shown. As you lie here, you might feel that same wisdom stirring inside you, the gentle sense that you don't have to explain everything you've survived in order for it to be real. Chapter 54. In a small village at the foot of distant hills, a child might grow up hearing only fragments of these tales. A name mentioned over dinner, a faded summit photo on the wall, a scarf that once belonged to an uncle who loved the high places. For that child, the mountains may become symbols of something larger, the bravery to follow a calling, the humility to accept limits, the mystery of lives lived fully, even when they end too soon. One day, that child may climb, or may never leave the valley. Either way, the story will have done its work, planting a seed of reverence for the fragile, shining gift of being alive. Chapter 55. Not every journey to the mountains is extreme. Some people walk only to the first viewpoint, then sit on a rock and let their gaze drift over forests and ridges. No ropes, no crampons, just a sandwich and a thermos, and the slow, deepening silence of being away from noise. Up there, phone reception fades, and the ordinary demands grow faint. The heart remembers a simpler rhythm. In a way, these gentle walks share the same route as the boldest climbs, a longing to step outside the narrow walls of routine and feel, if only for a moment, that life is wide and holy and worth approaching with open hands. Chapter 56. You do not need glaciers outside your door to touch that feeling. It can arrive in a quiet room at night, with the lamp turned low and your breath steadying. It can appear when you stand at a window and watch clouds change shape, or when you pause on a familiar street and really notice the sky for the first time that day. The mountains remind us that wonder is not reserved for the few. It is available to anyone who is willing to look with softer eyes. As you breathe in now, imagine that spaciousness opening in you. As you breathe out, let your thoughts grow lighter, like snowflakes drifting down to rest. Chapter 57. Long before satellite trackers and instant weather updates, climbers learned to read the sky the way sailors read the sea. A faint ring around the moon might mean new snow. A sudden change in wind direction could whisper of storms still beyond the horizon. On K2 and Everest, some of the oldest Sherpas would pause in the evenings, step outside the tent, and simply stand, eyes closed, feeling the air. Their forecasts were not printed on charts, but written in bone and breath. Often, they were right. Their instinct reminds us that the world still speaks in subtle ways, and that our bodies remember more than we realize when we are finally quiet enough to listen. Chapter 58. On one expedition, a young climber pushed higher despite a lingering cough and a heaviness in his chest. The summit was close. The dream felt nearer than ever, but as he moved into the death zone, his steps became ragged, each breath a shallow gasp. His partner watched the color drain from his face and knew that continuing would be an invitation to disaster. Gently, firmly, he placed a gloved hand on the young man's arm and said, "We go down now." There were tears on that descent, tears of frustration, of fear, of relief. Years later, the younger climber would call that the greatest gift anyone had ever given him, the chance to grow old. Chapter 59. In another season, a storm pinned an entire team in their tents for days. They could do nothing but wait, snow piling around the thin fabric, winds shrieking as if the sky itself were fraying. Inside, people read the same pages over and over, wrote letters they might never send, played the same cards until the corners softened. Tempers sometimes flared in that cramped world, but more often, gentleness prevailed. Someone sharing a last chocolate bar, another telling a long, meandering story just to pass the time. In that forced stillness, they discovered something profound, that being held in place can sometimes reveal more about who we are than endless motion ever could. Chapter 60. On a clear morning after such a storm, when the sky finally opened and the winds withdrew, the mountain gleamed as if newly made. The team stepped out, blinking in the bright light, everything crisp and freshly carved by snow and silence. Some chose to push higher. Others decided that their summit had already been reached in surviving the long, howling night. There is no single correct choice in such moments, only the path that aligns most truthfully with the quiet voice inside. The peaks do not judge. They simply stand, bearing witness as humans learn, slowly, to honor both their longing to rise and their need to remain. As you rest here, imagine that you too are emerging from your own small storm. The day's noise has blown through. The air around you is clearer now. Breathe in slowly, as though tasting that cold, shining morning after days of wind. Breathe out even more slowly, letting old tensions slide away like snow drifting off a laden branch. You do not have to decide whether to climb or descend tonight. You are already exactly where you need to be, on safe ground, under a vast, patient sky, with nothing asked of you but this: to soften, to trust the darkness, and to drift wherever sleep gently leads you. Chapter 61. In some mountain churches and village shrines, there are small walls covered in photographs, faces smiling beneath peaks, dates written in careful ink. Candles burn below them, their flames steady even when the door opens and a draft enters. Families come to these places not only to mourn, but to give thanks for time they did have, for love that was real, for the way one life can brighten so many others. The mountains that once felt so far away are brought close in those quiet rooms, turned into memories and blessings. Stone and snow become light and story, and grief slowly learns to breathe alongside gratitude. Chapter 62. High above, in the realm of icefalls and cornices, the language is simpler. Gravity, temperature, time. A serac does not know the name of the climber passing beneath it. It only knows the slow pull of its own weight, the long patience of its own collapse. Yet when people walk there, they bring something new into that wordless world. Intention, love, the wish to come home to someone waiting. In this way, each rope on a wall, each prayer whispered into a balaclava, turns the indifferent landscape into a shared, sacred place. Not because the mountain changes, but because hearts do. Chapter 63. There is a tender moment that happens at the end of many expeditions. Trucks are loaded, tents taken down, base camp reduced to bare ice and scattered rock. Before leaving, someone turns to look back one last time. The mountain stands exactly as it did before, unchanged, immense, silent. But the one who looks has been altered. Perhaps they did not reach the summit. Perhaps they did. Either way, they have met their own edges in the thin air and returned with a clearer sense of what truly matters. As the vehicle rolls away, dust or snow rising behind it, a quiet promise forms. To carry that clarity into the lowlands of everyday life. Chapter 64. You do not need to cross glaciers to feel such turning points. They appear in your days as small thresholds. The moment you choose to speak gently instead of sharply. The moment you decide to rest instead of pushing yourself past empty. The moment you forgive yourself for being human. In these choices, your heart steps away from the cliff edge of constant striving and finds a softer path along the slope. The mountains, with all their fierce beauty, are like vast parables carved in stone and ice, reminding you that altitude alone does not make a life meaningful. Love does. Presence does. The willingness to be here, fully, in this breath, does. As you hear this, let your own breathing become your quiet summit for tonight. Inhale slowly, as if drawing in cool air from a high, starlit pass. Exhale even more gently, letting your body sink a little heavier into the bed. You have already climbed enough in your life through days of responsibility, through nights of worry, through seasons of change. For now, you are allowed to set down your pack, close your eyes, and let the long, soft story of the mountains keep watch for you as you drift. Chapter 65. In the opening of many climbing films, you hear the same idea, that life is about taking risks, about chasing a sense of worth up steep walls and frozen faces. But the mountains themselves do not shout this. They simply stand, vast and quiet, asking no one to prove anything. It is we who bring our questions to them. Am I enough? Can I do this? high on a ridge or low in a city street, the answer is never found in danger alone. It is found in the way you show up, attentive, humble, willing to protect others as fiercely as you protect your dream. In that gentle, steady way, worth becomes less like a summit and more like a path. Chapter 66. You may never touch an ice tool or strap on crampons, yet you know what it is to climb. You have your own crevasses, old fears that open beneath you without warning. Your own avalanches, days when everything loose inside you seems to come crashing down at once. Still, you rise. You wake up on mornings when your heart feels heavy and choose to take one more step into the day. That too is mountaineering. The climbers whose stories you've heard faced thin air and steep slopes. You face long commutes, difficult conversations, unseen burdens. Nothing in you is small for being lived at sea level. Your courage counts, even if no one ever films it. Chapter 67. Think again of those frozen waterfalls that Guy once climbed, curtains of water caught in the act of falling, stilled by winter into glass. To stand beneath such a wall is to feel time itself paused. Each swing of an axe is a tiny conversation with gravity and grace. The grades climbers use WI3, WI5, WI7 are just numbers trying to capture something that is finally beyond measurement, the meeting of one small life with a huge, indifferent beauty. In your own days, you may feel moments like this too, when everything stops for a breath and you sense that something larger is looking back at you through the ordinary. Those moments are your frozen cathedrals. Chapter 68. On a chart, WI1 is easy, Y7, extreme. Yet for the person taking their very first step onto ice, even a gentle slope can feel like a cliff. Difficulty is always personal. What is simple for one heart may be terrifying for another. The mountains teach us to respect this. A seasoned climber will offer a rope, not judgment, to someone trembling on their first vertical meters. In the same way, you can offer yourself kindness when you face tasks that others might find effortless. Your nervousness does not mean you are weak. It only means this is your steep ground. Take a slow breath in and out, and know that each small, honest step is enough for tonight. Chapter 69. Avalanches are often described as monsters, sudden, roaring, unforgiving. Yet at their simplest, they are just snow giving way, layers that no longer wish to hold each other, finally letting go. Climbers learn to read the slope, to listen for hollow sounds beneath their feet, to notice when the snowpack feels unsettled. Sometimes, despite every precaution, a slope still breaks. In those moments, all pretense falls away. There is only instinct, hope, and whatever grace is at work in the world. For those who witness such power and live, something changes forever. A deeper respect for fragility and a quiet understanding that letting go can be both dangerous and necessary. Chapter 70. The phrase, "life is about taking risks," is often spoken over footage of high climbs and knife-edge ridges. But risk is not always a leap into danger. Sometimes it is the gentle, trembling act of telling the truth. Sometimes it is going to therapy or choosing to love again after loss. The mountaineers whose stories have held you tonight did not all seek peril for its own sake. Many sought clarity, presence, and a way to meet themselves without distraction. You can do that here, without ropes or altimeters. Simply lying still, acknowledging your own fears and hopes with tenderness, is a kind of sacred daring. As you hear this, let your breath become very soft. Inhale as if you are filling a small lantern with light. Exhale as though you are setting that lantern gently on the floor of your tent. Nothing more is required of you. The greatest risk you take in this moment is trusting that you are allowed to rest. Chapter 71. There was once a climber who turned back from a summit only a few hundred meters below the top. The weather was clear, the route familiar, his body strong. But as he moved upward, a faint unease settled in his chest, the sense that something was wrong, though he could not say what. He stopped, listened inwardly, and then decided, almost to his own surprise, to descend. Days later, a storm struck that ridge with unexpected ferocity. The ropes were torn away. Cornices collapsed. When he heard the news, he did not boast of his decision. He simply sat quietly with a mug between his hands, feeling gratitude move through him like thawing ice. Chapter 72. Another climber, after years of summits and near misses, felt a different kind of calling. One morning, packing for a new expedition, he realized that his heart no longer leapt at the thought of thin air and steep faces. Instead, it stirred at the vision of planting trees, of teaching children, of waking to the same valley view every day. Giving up high peaks felt, at first, like a kind of death. But slowly, he discovered a gentler altitude of joy found in tending a garden, in reading stories at bedtime, in watching storms from a porch instead of a ridge. His axe grew dusty, his love for life did not. As you rest here, perhaps you, too, can feel that there are many ways to live bravely. You have already climbed through years of change and choice. Tonight, let the only ascent be the slow rise and fall of your chest, and let your spirit walk, unhurried, along a wide, safe ridge of dreams. Chapter 73. On some expeditions, the bravest figure is not the one breaking trail at the front, but the quiet climber in the middle of the rope. They are not setting the line or placing the anchors, nor are they watching for falling rock from the rear. They simply move when the rope tugs, stop when it slackens, and keep their attention on the small patch of snow ahead. In that seemingly modest position, they practice a deep trust in those before and behind, trust in the path chosen, trust that if they stumble, someone will feel the tremor and hold. Many of us live our lives in that middle place, learning the sacred art of being carried as well as carrying. Chapter 74. On a long glacier, a rope team sometimes moves for hours without speaking. Crampons bite, axes rhythmically tap, and the only conversation is between steel and ice. Yet beneath that quiet, a powerful vow hums. If you fall, I will catch you. This promise is rarely stated aloud, but it lives in every knot and carabiner. In your own life, there may be people who have given you similar, wordless assurances, a friend who always answers late-night messages, a family member who shows up at your door without being asked, a stranger who once stepped in at exactly the right moment. Their care is your rope, stretched across unseen crevasses. Chapter 75. There is a special kind of tenderness in descent days. Packs feel heavier, legs more tired, but the mood often softens. The summit reached or not lies behind, and there is nothing left to chase, only the sweet gravity of home. Climbers laugh more easily, point out small beauties they were too focused to notice on the way up. Patterns in the ice, odd shapes in the rock, the way clouds pour over a saddle like slow water. In that loosening, the mountain becomes less an opponent and more a vast, patient companion. Downward steps, once dreaded, become small blessings, each one closer to warm air, familiar faces, and the ordinary miracles of everyday life. Chapter 76. Imagine your own life as a long expedition winding through years of weather. There have been steep days when you pushed hard, and long storms when you could do nothing but wait. There have been camps where you laughed, and high passes where you wept. Perhaps you have not always chosen the safest route. Perhaps you have sometimes ignored the warning winds inside your chest. Still, you are here. You have descended from many unseen ridges and crossed countless inner crevasses. That, in itself, is a quiet triumph. Take a slow breath in now, as if feeling the weight of your pack lighten. Breathe out even more slowly, as though you are stepping onto gentler ground. The night is your low valley, your safe camp. You have permission to unclip from every rope of expectation, to slip into the warmth of sleep, knowing that the great, high peaks will keep their watch without you. Chapter 77. After every expedition, there comes a quieter climb. Unpacking. Mud-stained duffels open on living room floors. Ropes uncoil like long, colorful memories. A jacket that once crackled with frost now hangs limp over a chair. Some things are repaired and kept. Some are retired with a gentle pat on worn fabric. In those small decisions, a whole season is revisited: the storm when that glove was lost, the sunrise seen in that hat, the friend who laughed while helping to stuff that sleeping bag away. Gear becomes a kind of altar, each scratch and stain a tiny scripture of endurance, reminding you that you have walked through more than you remember. Chapter 78. On certain bivouacs high above the world, sleep comes only in brief, fragile pockets. Climbers lie half upright, helmets still on, crampons still attached, anchored to ledges barely wider than their boots. The night wind moves past like a slow river, carrying particles of ice and the distant roar of unseen avalanches. In that suspended space, thoughts grow very simple. Breathe, stay warm, hold. Many whisper small prayers, not always for success, often simply for the chance to see dawn. When morning finally touches rock and snow with pale light, it feels like a quiet resurrection, a reminder that even in the most precarious places, another day can still unfold. Chapter 79. Before each new season, climbers sort through their gear the way others sort through old letters. They check harnesses for frayed edges, carabiners for hairline cracks, ropes for soft spots where the core has weakened. Anything untrustworthy is retired, not in anger, but in respect for what it has already done. In our inner lives, we are invited to something similar. Old stories we tell ourselves: I must never fail, I am alone, I have to be strong all the time, can be examined gently, like worn equipment. When they no longer hold real weight, we can thank them for trying to protect us, and then set them aside, making room for kinder truths. Chapter 80. On the last morning at base camp, the glacier crunches underfoot as loads are carried toward waiting animals or vehicles. Flags that fluttered for weeks are taken down, leaving the wind to move freely again. Climbers hug, sometimes awkwardly, sometimes fiercely. Promises are made to stay in touch, to climb again, to send photos. Then the caravan begins to move, a line of bright jackets slowly shrinking against the vastness of ice and rock. With each step away, the mountain recedes into cloud and distance, becoming once more a shape on the horizon instead of a daily companion. Yet something of its stillness, its fierce beauty, walks on quietly inside each person heading home. Now, let the story pause again, the way a caravan stops for the night beside a gentle stream. Imagine you are in your own small tent of blankets and sheets, lantern dim, everything you've lived rolled up and resting around you like packed gear. Outside, the day is finished. Its conversations, mistakes, and small victories are already fading into the dark. Inside, there is only the soft rhythm of your breathing and the steady presence of your body. Tired, but faithful. Inhale as if you are filling your chest with clear, cool air from a sheltered valley. Exhale as though you are setting down the last heavy bag and loosening the straps. Nothing is demanded of you now. You do not have to plan, to remember, or to improve. You are simply here, held between earth and sky, watched over by a love larger than any, mountain, free to drift wherever sleep wishes to carry you. Chapter 81. When climbers return to their ordinary lives, the mountains often follow them home in quiet ways. A sudden stillness in the middle of a busy day can feel like standing on a coal between storms. The hum of traffic may, for a moment, sound like distant wind along a ridge. They learn to wash dishes and answer emails with the same slow presence they once brought to placing an ice screw or tying a knot. In that way, the summit is not left behind. It unfolds through simple acts of care. You do not need crampons to practice this. You can bring that same mindful warmth to brushing your teeth, folding clothes, turning off the light. Chapter 82. There is an odd tenderness in the way climbers speak of fear. They rarely pretend it is absent. Instead, they describe learning to dwell alongside it, like sharing a tent with a restless companion. High on ice or rock, fear sharpens the senses, reminding them to clip properly, to check knots, to listen to the snow beneath their boots. When fear grows too loud, it is often a message rather than an enemy, a whisper to rest, to turn, to wait. In your life, too, fear can be a guide when honored gently. It asks, what do you truly value? What do you need to protect? Answering those questions is a quiet form of courage. Chapter 83. On long approach marches, when the peak is still days away, small details become treasures. The blue flash of a bird above the moraine, the sound of meltwater laughing under thin ice, the way evening light slides down a distant face, turning it from white to gold to deep violet. Climbers walk in single file, each with their thoughts, yet all under the same widening sky. At night, they gather and share these tiny wonders, as if they were jewels found on the trail. In listening, they discover that beauty is not something they must conquer. It is something they are invited to notice, moment by moment, step by patient step. Chapter 84. Sometimes, after a hard expedition, a climber will dream of the mountains for weeks, steep slopes appearing behind their closed eyes, phantom winds moving through their sleep. Over time, those dreams soften. Ledges become fields. Seracs become clouds. The sharp edges blur into quieter, kinder shapes. In a way, the mind is doing its own descent, slowly bringing the high, fierce images down to gentler ground. You too may carry old cliffs within you, memories of difficult seasons, losses, or close calls. With rest, they can mellow, turning from jagged peaks into distant hills on your inner horizon. Tonight, as you breathe in and breathe out, trust that this softening is already unfolding within you. Chapter 85. On K2, someone once tried to describe the height of Camp 3 to people who had never seen a mountain. Imagine, they said, stacking football fields end to end, or lining up cars until they pierced the sky. Numbers and comparisons were their way of reaching across the zone gap between the valley and the heights. But for the climber standing there, statistics fade. What matters is the sound of their own breath, the crunch of crampons, the thin burn of the air. In your life, too, not everything important can be measured. The depth of your love, the weight of your faith, the quiet courage it takes to simply keep going, these live beyond charts and diagrams. Chapter 86. Mountaineering gone wrong, people say, when they gather stories of accidents into a single long telling. From far away, it can look like a parade of missteps and misfortune. But if you lean closer, if you listen beneath the dramatic summaries, another pattern appears. You hear about friends who stayed with the injured, climbers who gave up their own summit bids to help others descend, communities that built schools and clinics in memory of those lost. Yes, there is error and hubris, but there is also humility, loyalty, and love. The same is true of your own story. From a distance, you may see only mistakes. Look softer, and you'll find grace threaded through. Chapter 87. Right now you are lying still, listening to these high, cold tales from a safe, warm place. Outside your walls, the night carries its own quiet weather, maybe wind in trees, maybe distant traffic, maybe only silence. Inside, your heart is doing its patient work, beating without being asked. Let these stories of ice and altitude be like distant storms seen from a sheltered porch. Beautiful, humbling, but not threatening. They are here not to stir anxiety, but to soothe it, to remind you that, compared to knife-edge ridges and thin, unforgiving air, your bed is a blessed low camp. You are allowed to feel safe, small, and wonderfully ordinary. Chapter 88. If you could trace a single thread through all these mountaineering lives, it might be this: the willingness to keep showing up with a tender, imperfect heart in a world that can be harsh. Guy showed up on frozen waterfalls, Michael on Everest, Atanas on K2, families at kitchen tables, friends at memorials, you in your own everyday storms. None of them were flawless. All of them were human. When you feel overwhelmed by your own imperfections, remember this: the peaks do not demand perfection from those who walk among them. They simply stand, receiving each step as it is. Tonight, let yourself be received in the same way exactly as you are, weary and worthy, breathing gently in the dark. Chapter 89. In some mountain regions, elders tell a simple story: that high peaks are places where earth reaches up to listen more closely to heaven. They do not speak of conquering these heights, only of visiting them, briefly, with respect. When climbers set foot on a summit, they stand for a heartbeat in that thin, listening place, and then they must descend, because our bodies are made for valleys, for rivers, for firesides, and shared meals. The lesson is quiet but profound. We are not meant to live forever at extremes. The soul needs both the awe of the heights and the comfort of home, both fierce beauty and gentle, daily grace. Chapter 90. Think of the families who welcomed their climbers back after hard seasons. A door opens, boots, scuffed and scarred, step over the threshold. Someone drops a heavy pack and is suddenly wrapped in arms, in kitchen smells, in familiar light. In that embrace, the storms and ridges fall away. There is no need to describe every detail. The simple fact of "you are here" is enough. You have known moments like this too, reunions after long days or long years, quiet returns from inner journeys no one else fully saw. Those homecomings, however small, are your base camps of the heart, where love waits with open hands and no conditions. Chapter 91. Not everyone who dreams of mountains ever travels to them. Some carry Everest and K2 within, as symbols of things they long to do. Writing a book, changing a habit, healing an old wound. For some, circumstances will always keep those outer summits out of reach. Yet this does not make their longing less holy. The inner expeditions to forgive, to grow, to trust again can be just as steep and transformative. When you choose compassion over bitterness, patience over haste, honesty over hiding, you are placing careful steps in thin air. The snow may be invisibly underfoot, but the climb is real, and the view from each small height is just as beautiful. Chapter 92. As this long night's journey continues, imagine that the stories you've heard are slowly settling around you like soft snowfall. Each tale of courage, each act of kindness, each hard lesson learned becomes a single quiet flake drifting down. They do not press on you, they cushion you. They build a gentle landscape where sharp edges are softened, where old regrets are partly covered, where your tired heart can lie down without fear. Breathe in slowly, as if drawing in the clean, cold air of a new morning after fresh snow. Breathe out, even, more slowly, feeling yourself sink a little deeper into safety. You are not lost in these mountains of memory. You are sheltered among them, watched over, and softly guided towards sleep. Chapter 93. Somewhere on a distant ridge at dusk, a single tent glows like an ember against the vast dark. Inside, a climber zips their sleeping bag, switches off their headlamp, and lies, listening to the faint pulse of wind through guy lines. Outside, glaciers, cornices, crevasses. Inside, the small, steady rhythm of one human breath, going in and out, in and out. In that fragile shelter, far from roads and cities, they feel something both immense and intimate, an awareness that they are held between depths they cannot see and heights they cannot reach. You know this feeling too, even without a tent. Those quiet moments when you sense that your life rests in hands larger than your own. Chapter 94. Long after expeditions end, the most enduring images are rarely the summit shots. They are the small, almost hidden moments. A partner adjusting another's harness without being asked. A shared grin after crossing a tricky section. A mug of something hot pressed into cold hands at daybreak. These scenes rarely appear in films or articles, yet they are the true backbone of every climb. In your own days, the gestures that matter most often look just as simple. Answering a message, making a meal, listening without rushing to fix. These are the ropes you throw across the crevasses in other hearts, and the ropes that have been thrown quietly across yours. Chapter 95. In the highest camps, sleep often comes in thin layers, like drifting snow. A climber may wake to the crackle of ice on the tent, to the metallic whisper of oxygen flowing, to the subtle shift of wind direction. Each time, they check their anchors, their ropes, their own breath. Then they close their eyes again, surrendering once more to rest they have not fully earned but deeply need. Tonight, you also wake and drift, wake and drift, perhaps turning on your pillow, perhaps noticing a stray thought. Each time, you can do what they do. Check that you are safe. Notice your breathing, and then gently let yourself fall back into the soft white of sleep. Chapter 96. As dawn nears, high peaks begin to glow long before the valleys. First, A faint silver washes across the highest cornices. Then a blush of pink, then a deepening gold. Villages below still lie in shadow, but the summits already stand in quiet fire. In many traditions, this is taken as a kind of promise that light reaches the heights first, then slowly descends to touch every field, every roof, every open hand. In your own life, hope may appear first at the edges, in a small new thought, in a brief moment of peace before it filters down into all your days. Trust that slow descent. As the mountains wait for morning, you can wait for gentler hours too, breathing softly in the dark. Chapter 97. In the darkest hours before dawn, when even the wind seems to sleep, high mountains become almost invisible, only a heavier shade of black against the sky. In such moments, climbers huddled in tents or bivouacs sometimes feel as though the whole world has disappeared, leaving only their breath and the faint curve of fabric above their faces. It is a lonely feeling, yet also strangely pure. There is nothing to distract from the simple truth of being alive right now, in this one fragile body. Your own nights may have held similar hours awake at 3 in the morning, feeling the world shrink to a small room and a quiet, circling mind. Chapter 98. On those wakeful nights, some climbers find comfort in small rituals. One might count breaths, another trace the seams of the tent with gloved fingers, another whisper a mantra learned in childhood. These gestures are not about controlling the storm outside. They are about offering the heart something gentle to hold. You too can weave such rituals into your restless hours. A hand resting over your heartbeat, a slow count to 4 on the inhale and 6 on the exhale, a single phrase repeated softly inside. I am safe, I am here. Like a rope tied to a secure anchor, these simple acts keep you connected when your thoughts want to wander into dangerous crevasses. Chapter 99. When morning finally comes to the high places, it often arrives without fanfare. No trumpets, no sudden warmth, just the slow lifting of darkness, the faint reveal of ridges and cornices, the first thin line of color along the horizon. Climbers unzip their tents and peer out, eyes narrowed against the pale light. They check the sky, check each other, check their own bodies for signs of readiness or warning. And then, step by step, they decide. Today we climb higher, or today we go down. Always, at the heart of that decision, lies a question that belongs to every soul at any altitude. What is the most loving choice I can make with my life, for myself and for those who love me? As you hear this, imagine that your own dawn is also slowly approaching, not necessarily in the sky outside, but within you. You may still feel the residue of old storms, the ache of past ridges, the chill of nights when you felt alone. Yet something in you is already turning toward light, quietly, in ways you may not even see. Let your breathing mirror that gentle shift. Inhale, as though you are welcoming the first hint of color on a far horizon. Exhale, as though you are releasing the long, heavy night from your shoulders. You do not need to decide anything right now. You do not need to know exactly how tomorrow will unfold. For this moment, it is enough to be here, wrapped in soft darkness, knowing that morning, outer or inner, always, eventually, finds its way. Good night.